Welcome to MapCrow, the RPG art show. My name is Kyle, and today we're back at it again at Krispy Kreme. We are picking up where we left off, making my own TTRPG. I know a lot of folks were really excited for me to get back with a part 2 to this series, but making a game is a tad more complicated, for me at least, than making an illustration, so I appreciate everyone's patience and understanding. A lot has changed with this game. It has radically shifted to a new direction because as I am teaching my classes in game design, I am constantly running up against new material or hearing conversations that put new light on stuff that I thought I already knew. But also, I played Gloomhaven, and this game is exquisite. It's got excellent components, miniatures, standees, all kinds of cards. It's got beautiful maps and scenarios. It keeps the tension up with a ticking clock. It has secret cool rewards that you unlock as you level up and get through the story. It has a persistent game world state that changes as you get through the campaign. It is an astonishing game. And it proved to me that there are games out there that already do what I was attempting to do originally better than what I was doing. But it also demonstrates to me that I don't like that kind of game very much. There's too many fiddly bits. There are too many mechanics. With such a focus on the granularity of turn-based grid tactical combat, I was just not feeling like I was having any fun going on like an adventure of peril and exploration. And I think some reading I've been doing for my class has kind of explained some of this tension and dissatisfaction that I was feeling with my own game design and the experience I had with Gloomhaven. I've been reading the book Finite and Infinite Games, A Vision of Life as Play and Possibility by James P. Carse. It's not really a book about game design. It is more of a philosophy book that is using games as a jumping off point for talking about all kinds of human systems. To grossly oversimplify, the author identifies finite games as games that one plays to win and therefore stop the game. It's sort of like a zero-sum game. You increase by making your opponent or the environment decrease. And then there is the infinite game, which one plays for the love of the game itself to continue the game instead of cease it with victory. Now, I think that these categories are far more porous than they seem to be laid out in the book and in the conversations I've heard about the book, but I am still reading, so beg your pardon if that is explained. Nevertheless, when I imagine the game that I want to make, the feeling and experience I want to have from playing it, it's not really about defeating monsters through wisdom and cunning. It's about exploration of a perilous world, and those combat scenarios are interesting things, but they are interesting things to continue to see, not interesting things to defeat and then see the credits roll, so to speak. These finite game structures kind of explain where I think I am lacking enjoyment from games like 5 Parsecs from Home, Frostgrave, and Rangers of Shadowdeep. And I also want to be clear, I am not trying to establish or reinforce any kind of hierarchy and to say that infinite games are better than finite games or anything like that. It's just something I feel describes some frustrations I have with my own design. And when I think about other games like Sean Tompkins' Ironsworn, I think that's more infinite. It was a game that was designed to really support solo play from the beginning, and it is also designed so that you can continue to set goals and fulfill them and go on quests and just keep adding more forever if you want to. The game is played by making these powered by the apocalypse style moves with partial successes that really give you flavorful ways to interpret the circumstances of your actions in the world. It's a very different thing to compare it to Rangers of Shadowdeep, where you beat scenarios. In Ironsworn, you kind of fulfill quests, but are oftentimes prompted to just make a new one immediately after. So having a different direction to explore, I decided to start playtesting and stress testing my new system with all of these different kinds of Apocalypse World moves. And speaking of Apocalypse World, one of the designers on that game also has a Patreon where he released a game called The Pit. And this had you roll your d6 and then place your d6 next to these moves that were kind of asking these questions. And with all of these new inspirations and ideas swirling around my head, how do you make enough questions to contain an infinite style game? I started making the game too big. This is an all too familiar and easy trap for me to fall in with my design. It's scope creep, it's feature creep, it is any problem that I have with my game can be solved by adding new stuff to the game and making the game bigger and more complex. It's a sort of defense mechanism, I think, in my case, where I am protecting myself from my own self-critique by just not actually finishing things, which is why it's important to playtest as quickly as possible and start judging actual play instead of words on a screen. Fortunately, I did get this to the table to playtest really quickly this time, so I didn't really waste a lot of time, and I started learning kind of big issues that I was having with my own design. I quickly figured out that most of these question moves that I was making were repeating themselves, so they could really be kind of condensed down to one question and a couple of follow-up questions. Because I was able to spot that in the early playtest before I wrote another 8 pages of unique questions covering every possible scenario, I was able to push out a new version that had addition by subtraction. But another big reason why I feel like this game is going in a solid direction is because I took some time to read and play other games. When I was studying game design as an art practice for my MFA, my colleague and mentor would oftentimes critique my game not by reading it and telling me things I should change about it, but reading it and giving me 1 or 2 games that he said I should just play. Building a fluency and a literacy with what is going on in the space that you're creating art in is essential and sometimes even more important than sitting down and doing the work. While I didn't adore my time with Gloomhaven, it helped me focus on the bits of resource management and tension mechanics that I actually felt like I cared about and responded to. What Gloomhaven does with its ticking clock on every mission is really strong, and it keeps you from ruining your own fun by playing in a boring way. So the next step for this project is to stress test it. It's time to see if my elegant simplicity is any match for the Dungeon of the Mad Mage. A big reason why I want to get a solo system that I'm happy with up and running is so I can experience these published adventures in my own time. Because I feel that there is so much I want to learn about adventure design, and the best way to do that is playing through some of these big adventures written by some of the brightest minds in the biz. Another step that I just need to start thinking about and feeling out in my playtest is giving this game a unique identity. Right now, it is cobbled together from a lot of different references, and it's basically doing things that are already done really well in other games that already exist. So I need to find an identity, a voice, a focus on this project, but I truly believe that is just going to emerge as I listen to the process and keep running this thing through playtests. But really, that's a marketing concern, and I'm not so sure that this is a commercial project. Right now, this is something that I am doing to engage in the practice of design so that I am staying curious and I can talk to my classes about projects that I'm working on and problems that I'm solving in ways that I'm solving them. It's not necessarily for a big commercial release. Time will tell, I suppose, but meanwhile, if you want to see the playtest documents that I have put together and not bother to proofread, you can do so by checking out my Patreon. This game will be available to my $5 subscribers who also get access to my secret sketchbook, where I talk about my art process, design inspirations, and behind-the-scenes information about the Building Better Monsters book, Monstrous. The next video is probably going to be about a map project that I'm very excited to share with you, so be looking forward to that. And until next time, my friends, farewell.